On the planet Viralia, the sky shimmered with 3 suns casting golden light over the city's tall spires. The buildings were made of crystal-like materials that reflected the sunlight, and the streets buzzed with hovering vehicles carrying aliens of all shapes and sizes. Among them, one figure stood out more than the rest, a young alien woman named Zila. She was tall, graceful, with scales that shimmered in shades of violet and blue. Her eyes were sharp and confident, and she carried herself with an air of superiority that made others give way as she walked. Zila laughed often, loudly, and without care for who she might offend. Her pride was well known in Viralia. She often said that her species was the most advanced in the galaxy, capable of feats no other could imagine, and in her mind Earth and its humans were laughable. "They are primitive," she said to her friend Merrick one morning, as they watched a holographic report about Earth. "They can barely leave their planet, and yet they think they are important. Imagine sending them to our galaxy, they would fail immediately." Merrick chuckled nervously. "Zila, you always underestimate them. Maybe they are more capable than you think." "Please," Zila said with a dramatic wave of her hand. "They are children, playing in a world far bigger than they understand. I would enjoy seeing one of them try to face me." Her laughter echoed through the hall, attracting attention from nearby aliens. Some smiled politely while others rolled their eyes. Zila did not care. She enjoyed being the center of attention, especially when she could assert her superiority. At that very moment, an announcement sounded across the city's central square. A delegation from Earth had arrived. Zila's sharp ears picked up the details. Humans, representatives of the so-called primitive world, had traveled across space to visit Viralia. Zila's eyes sparkled with amusement. She had expected diplomats, yes, but humans. She almost laughed aloud at the thought. "They will be so easy to deal with," she whispered to Merrick. "I cannot wait to see them stumble in front of the council." The human delegation landed in a sleek, silver craft that contrasted sharply with the crystalline city around it. Out stepped several humans moving cautiously, their eyes wide with curiosity and respect. Zila observed them from a balcony above, her heart filled with a mixture of amusement and disdain. Among the humans was a man named Daniel. He was not the tallest or the strongest, but there was a calm confidence in the way he carried himself. His eyes were clear, thoughtful, and observant. Unlike the others, he did not seem intimidated by the alien surroundings. He studied the city, the buildings, and the people with careful interest. When the delegation entered the council hall, Zila made sure she was present. She strutted to the front, her presence commanding the room. The other aliens bowed slightly, and Zila allowed herself a small, satisfied smile. Daniel and the humans entered cautiously. Zila's eyes immediately found him. There was something about him, something different. But she shook her head and laughed quietly. It must be pride in a weak species, she thought. The council began, and Zila took her chance to speak first. Her voice carried through the hall, smooth and confident. "Welcome, humans," she said, her tone light but filled with mockery. "I am Zila, one of the finest representatives of Viralia. I hope you find our world enlightening." A few of the humans looked nervous, and some tried to smile politely. Daniel, however, met her gaze steadily. He nodded politely. "Thank you for welcoming us," he said in a clear voice. "We are honored to be here and hope to learn from your civilization." Zila raised an eyebrow, suppressing a laugh. "Learn from us? Oh, I'm sure we have much to teach. Perhaps how to survive in a galaxy far larger than your tiny planet." A ripple of laughter went through some of the aliens in the room. Daniel remained calm. He did not seem offended, but instead he responded with quiet dignity. "Survival is not only about strength," he said softly. "It is also about curiosity, cooperation, and courage. Traits humans have in abundance, even if we are not as technologically advanced." Zila's eyes narrowed. No one had ever dared to speak to her this way, and the fact that he did it calmly, without fear, piqued her interest. She tilted her head, examining him more closely. Throughout the day, Daniel and the humans were shown the wonders of Viralia. Crystal towers that reached the clouds, energy networks that lit the streets with no need for fuel, and flying creatures that seemed to respond to thought alone. Zila accompanied them, watching as Daniel absorbed the information, asked questions, and made observations that impressed some of the alien scientists. By the afternoon, Zila could feel herself becoming slightly annoyed. He was competent, not weak, not foolish. He adapted quickly, thinking in ways her species did not expect. yet she could not admit it. Pride was too strong. During a break, Zila approached Daniel as he examined a small device that could manipulate energy fields. "Do you understand this?" she asked, trying to sound casual but also asserting dominance. Daniel glanced at her, smiling politely. "It is different from anything on Earth, but the principles are logical. With some guidance, I believe I could operate it effectively." Zila laughed softly, though not without curiosity. "You are confident. For a human. Perhaps too confident. Many of your kind would break under pressure. And yet I have not," Daniel said calmly. His answer was simple, but it carried weight. Zila did not expect him to respond so easily. As they continued, Zila's pride battled with a strange new feeling, admiration. She would never admit it aloud, of course. She had laughed at humans, mocked them publicly, and thought them inferior. But something about Daniel made her reconsider. By evening, the humans were invited to a ceremonial banquet in the council hall. Zila sat near Daniel, her expression carefully neutral, hiding the thoughts swirling in her mind. She watched as he interacted with other aliens politely, learning their ways and showing respect without losing his own sense of self. The banquet was filled with stories of ancient civilizations, displays of alien art and music that resonated through the hall. Zila could not deny the humans' curiosity, their willingness to learn, and their courage in navigating a world so different from their own. For the first time in her life, Zila felt a twinge of uncertainty. Perhaps her laughter at Earth had been premature. Perhaps humans were not as weak as she thought. As the night ended, the humans prepared to leave the banquet hall. Daniel paused at the exit and turned to Zila. "Thank you for guiding us," he said quietly. "I appreciate your patience and your insight. I hope we can learn more from each other in the days to come." Zila blinked, caught off guard by his sincerity. She nodded curtly, hiding the stir of emotion she did not understand. As the humans departed to their quarters, Zila remained in the hall, staring at the holographic city map projected before her. Pride warred with curiosity, and amusement warred with something else she could not name. Perhaps Earth is not so weak after all, she thought quietly, and though she would never say it aloud, she found herself looking forward to the days ahead, days that might challenge everything she believed about humans, and about herself. And somewhere in the quiet of her heart, a tiny seed of respect for a human man had already begun to grow. The next morning on Virelia, the city sparkled under the soft light of the three suns. Alien citizens moved quickly through the streets, performing their duties with precision and pride. The humans were assigned to a research complex in the heart of the city, where alien scientists were working on advanced energy technology. Zila was assigned as Daniel's guide. She tried to hide her irritation. After all, she had already judged humans and found them amusing. Yet, as she walked beside him, she could not help noticing how calmly he studied everything, asking questions with genuine curiosity rather than mockery. "This way," she said, leading him through the corridors filled with glowing panels and hovering drones. Her voice was firm, carrying authority. Daniel followed quietly, observing the devices and noting their patterns. "These energy conduits are fascinating," he said softly. "They store energy more efficiently than anything we have on Earth. With slight adjustments, the power output could double." Zila's eyes narrowed. She was not used to humans making suggestions, let alone ones that might improve alien technology. "You are confident, aren't you?" she asked, a hint of disbelief in her tone. "I try to understand before I assume," Daniel replied, glancing at her with a small smile. "I have learned that pride can blind us to possibilities." Zila's ears twitched. His words were polite but carried meaning. He was not just a visitor. He was thinking for himself, and that made her uncomfortable. She had always assumed superiority, yet here was a human challenging her expectations without arrogance. Their first task in the research complex was to analyze an experimental energy field. Zila led Daniel to a chamber filled with glowing machinery that hummed with power. The alien scientist demonstrated the process, carefully explaining the principles behind the technology. Daniel listened attentively, taking notes and occasionally asking questions that the aliens had not considered. Zila watched, impressed despite herself. He approached the machinery cautiously, yet his movements were precise and confident. "Your species adapts quickly," she said, unable to hide her surprise entirely. Daniel shrugged lightly. "We have to. Survival depends on it." Zila paused. His words struck a chord she did not expect. Survival. She had. 2 days later, an urgent message arrived at the Virillion Research Complex. A distant asteroid field, previously uncharted, had begun emitting unusual energy readings. Alien scientists feared the unstable energy could disrupt nearby planets or even the city itself. The Council decided that a small team must investigate immediately, and humans were included in the mission. Zila was assigned again to accompany Daniel. She hid her irritation. She had never thought a human could handle real danger, but she also felt a flicker of curiosity she could not explain. The team boarded a sleek Virillion scout ship, designed for speed and survival in dangerous space conditions. Daniel observed the ship carefully, noting every control panel, every sensor, and every safety protocol. Zila, watching him, felt a mix of amusement and disbelief. He is thorough. For a human, she thought. The journey to the asteroid field was quiet at first. Zila and Daniel worked together to analyze preliminary data from the ship's scanners. The energy readings are fluctuating, Daniel said, pointing at the holographic display. If this continues, it could create a chain reaction affecting the entire field. Zila nodded, impressed despite herself. Yes, that is why the Council sent us. But most humans would panic in this situation. I do not panic, Daniel said simply, his eyes steady. Panic does not solve problems. Observation and action do. Zila frowned slightly. There was something about the calm confidence in his voice that unsettled her pride. She had always believed her species to be unmatched in composure, and yet here was a human, not just surviving, but thinking clearly in the face of danger. As they approached the asteroid field, the ship's sensors went into overdrive. Massive rocks floated unpredictably, some carrying unstable energy crystals that pulsed with dangerous light. The field was more chaotic than any map had predicted. Steady, Zila instructed the ship's pilot, her usual authority shining through. We must navigate carefully. One wrong move and we could be destroyed. Daniel leaned over the navigation panel, pointing out gaps and safe paths through the moving asteroids. If we follow this trajectory and adjust for the energy spikes, we can reach the core without major damage. Zila raised an eyebrow. You are suggesting the safest path? Most humans would be frozen by fear. Daniel smiled faintly. Some humans are not as fragile as they seem. The first major challenge came quickly. A massive asteroid larger than their ship suddenly shifted, heading straight for them. Zila reacted instinctively, commanding evasive maneuvers. Daniel calculated angles and speed, guiding the pilot with precise instructions. Together they avoided disaster, the ship narrowly missing the rock by mere meters. Zila felt a surge of respect she could not ignore. You think fast, she admitted. And so do you, Daniel replied with a small grin. It seems we make a good team. The team pressed deeper into the field. Energy crystals glowed brightly, some floating in strange patterns, others spinning violently. One of the alien scientists, Talon, examined a crystal too closely. The energy suddenly surged, sending him spinning toward a floating rock. Without hesitation, Daniel shot forward, grabbing Talon and pulling him to safety. Zila's eyes widened in shock. She had expected hesitation, perhaps panic, but Daniel acted with precision and courage. When Talon was safe, he looked at Daniel with awe. You saved me? How did you react so quickly? Daniel shrugged lightly. Observation and timing. Panic is useless. Focus is everything. Zila felt something unfamiliar, admiration tinged with disbelief. Humans could survive and even thrive in situations that had always tested her species. The team finally reached the source of the unusual energy. It was a massive crystal embedded in a giant asteroid, pulsating with raw power. Alien scientists began their analysis, but the energy was unstable, shifting unpredictably. This is dangerous, Zila warned. If we miscalculate, the crystal could explode, destroying everything in this field. Daniel stepped closer, studying the crystal. We need a controlled method to stabilize it, he said. Something simple, using the principles of energy resonance. With proper timing, we can neutralize the fluctuations. Zila hesitated. No human had ever attempted this before, and the consequences of failure were catastrophic. Yet looking at Daniel, she saw not fear but determination, intelligence, and calm focus. Do it, she said finally. I will assist. Follow my guidance and we can succeed together. Working as a team, Zila and Daniel coordinated the adjustments to the energy field. Zila managed the alien controls with precision, while Daniel calculated timings, energy flows, and resonance frequencies. Sparks flew, lights blinked, and the crystal pulsed violently, but step by step the instability decreased. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, with a soft hum, the crystal stabilized. The pulsating light softened, energy flows balanced, and the asteroid field's chaos began to subside. The alien scientists cheered, and Zila felt an unexpected thrill. She had witnessed a human not only survive danger, but actively solve a problem that had baffled the most advanced minds of her species. When the mission ended, the team returned to Virelia, exhausted but victorious. Zila stayed silent, reflecting on the events. She had laughed at humans, mocked them openly, and believed them unworthy. Yet here was Daniel, calm under pressure, intelligent, resourceful, and courageous. Later, in the quiet of the research complex, Zila found herself standing beside Daniel again. The city below glimmered as the sun set, casting long shadows across the crystalline towers. "You are unlike any human I have met," she said finally, her tone softer than usual. Daniel looked at her and smiled. "I am not alone. Many humans are capable of more than most species realize." Zila's scales tingled slightly, an involuntary reaction she did not understand. She turned away, hoping he had not noticed. "You saved lives today," she added quietly. "Including mine, if I'm honest." Daniel's eyes softened. "We saved lives together. That is what matters." Zila's pride wrestled with her growing admiration. She had expected to mock him, to see weakness, to laugh at Earth, but now she felt something entirely new: respect, curiosity, and a spark of something she could not name. As the night grew darker, Zila sat alone on a balcony staring at the stars. She had laughed at Earth. She had thought humans were inferior. But now, after this dangerous mission, she realized that Earthlings, particularly this one human, could be extraordinary in ways her species had never imagined. For the first time, she wondered, had she underestimated not just Daniel but the entire human race? And if humans could rise to such challenges, what other surprises could they hold? A faint smile touched her lips. The days ahead promised to be far more interesting than she had ever expected. And deep down she felt a strange sense of anticipation for what was to come. The city of Virelia shined brighter than usual. After the successful mission in the asteroid field, the council praised both their own scientists and the human visitors. The humans had earned respect they never expected to gain, and whispers of admiration spread across the alien capital. Zila, however, found herself more unsettled than proud. She stood at her balcony that night, gazing out at the glowing spires and crystal towers. For the first time, she felt her heart conflicted. She had always believed humans were beneath her people, weaker, less capable. Yet Daniel had proved her wrong again and again. He was calm in danger, thoughtful in chaos, and unshaken by her sharp words. She had mocked him in front of her people, but he had answered with quiet dignity instead of anger. That quiet strength pulled at her thoughts long after the mission ended. The next morning, Daniel visited the research complex again. He was working with alien scientists on adjusting the resonance stabilizers to prevent future energy disruptions. Zila joined him, though part of her did not know why. "You came early," Daniel said with his usual polite smile. "I was assigned to oversee," Zila replied quickly, hiding her true reason. "The council wants me to ensure the humans do not make mistakes." Daniel chuckled softly. "And have I disappointed you so far?" Zila froze for a second, then turned away. "No, not yet." Her tone lacked the sharpness it once carried. Daniel noticed but said nothing. Instead, he returned to his work, carefully adjusting the controls. Zila watched him, realizing how focused he was. Every action was deliberate, not rushed, not clumsy. He respected the technology and understood it more than most would expect of a human. Hours later, after finishing their tasks, the two of them walked through the city. Virelia was alive with activity. Markets filled with glowing fruits, artisans shaping crystals into art, and children playing with floating spheres of energy. Daniel's eyes lit with wonder as he took it all in. "You see everything as if it's new," Zila said, her voice softer than usual. "Because it is," Daniel replied. "On Earth we do not have cities like this or skies with 3 suns. Every detail here tells me something about your people. And I want to learn it." Zila tilted her head, studying him. "Most aliens visit us with pride, wanting to show off their own power. You Only want to learn. Daniel shrugged lightly. Knowledge is power. And humility keeps us alive. Pride can blind us to danger. Zila's chest tightened at his words. She thought of her own pride, of how she had mocked him without reason. Yet he had shown patience. It made her feel strange, a mix of guilt and something warmer she did not fully understand. That evening, a celebration was held in the council hall to honor the next morning, Zila faced the council. Her steps were slow, and her scales, usually shining proudly, seemed dull under the bright lights of the chamber. She had hidden nothing. The revelation could not be concealed. She was carrying Daniel's child, a fact that challenged everything her species had ever known. The council chamber was filled with elders and advisors. Some regarded her with curiosity, others with thinly veiled disdain. Whispers spread like wildfire. A human child? Impossible. How could this happen? Zila took a deep breath. She had never felt so exposed, yet she stood tall. I am here to speak honestly, she said, her voice steady despite the tension. I carry a child. The father is a human. I understand this is unusual in our culture, but it is not a threat. It is life. The council murmured, some shaking their heads in disbelief. One elder, a tall alien with emerald scales named Varric, leaned forward. Zila, this defies natural law. Humans are inferior in biology and in strength. How can you claim this child is anything but a mistake? Zila's eyes narrowed, and for the first time she felt her pride return. Not the pride of superiority, but the pride of truth. You have underestimated humans for too long. The child I carry is strong, healthy, and a symbol of cooperation between species. Daniel is not weak. He is courageous, intelligent, and kind. And this child is living proof of what humans can achieve. A ripple of shock passed through the chamber. Some council members whispered nervously. Others exchanged worried glances. It was unprecedented. A hybrid child between a human and a Varelian. Varric rose from his seat, his voice sharp. Zila, you risk dishonoring our people. The council cannot ignore this. You must explain why you allowed this to happen. Zila straightened. It was not allowed. It happened because Daniel and I worked together, trusted each other, and respected each other. I no longer laugh at humans. I no longer see them as weak. They are capable, resilient, and worthy of respect. And so is this child. A long silence filled the chamber. The elders had never heard such words from a young Varelian. Her courage astonished some, enraged others. Zila's voice carried authority that demanded attention, not fear. Finally, an elder named Talon spoke. He was known for his wisdom and fairness. If what you say is true, then this child may indeed represent something greater than a single species. But you must understand, many will not accept it. There will be challenges ahead. Zila nodded. I understand. I am prepared to face them. But I will not hide this truth, and neither will Daniel. The council deliberated for hours. Some members insisted she return to her quarters and keep the matter secret. Others, like Talon, argued that humans had proven their worth and that the child represented a new era of understanding. Zila waited patiently. Her mind wandered to Daniel, who was quietly working with other humans on further projects. She thought of the dangerous mission, the asteroid field, and how he had saved lives, including hers. She realized that respect had grown into something deeper, though she did not yet fully name it. Finally, the council issued a statement. While the union of species is unusual, the courage and intelligence demonstrated by the human in question cannot be ignored. The child shall be recognized and the mother shall be supported. Let this be a new chapter for our understanding of the galaxy. Zila felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had faced the judgment of her people and emerged not only unbroken but vindicated. She had defended the honor of the child, of Daniel, and of humans everywhere. Later that evening, Daniel found her in the gardens of the research complex. The garden was filled with glowing plants and floating water spheres, a place of peace amidst the chaos of politics and culture. You did it, he said quietly, holding her hands gently. You faced them and you were brave. Zila smiled faintly. We did it together, but I was afraid. I have never faced opposition like this before. You are stronger than you realize, Daniel replied. Strength is not just physical or technological. It is courage. It is standing for what is right. Even when others doubt you, you have that in abundance. Her scales tingled at his words and she felt warmth spread through her chest. For the first time, she admitted silently that she admired this human, not for his species, but for him. The days that followed were filled with both challenges and small victories. Some aliens whispered behind her back, mocking the Union. Others, especially younger citizens, watched her with curiosity and even admiration. Zila faced each day with patience, knowing that acceptance would take time. Meanwhile, Daniel worked tirelessly, helping the council and scientists understand human capabilities. He showed that humans could adapt, innovate, and even enhance alien technology. Slowly, attitudes began to shift. The same people who had laughed at Earth began to acknowledge the value humans could bring. One day, a young Varelian child approached Zila in the gardens. "Will the baby be like us?" the child asked innocently, eyes wide. Zila crouched to meet the child's gaze. "Yes, in many ways. But the baby will also be like Daniel. Strong, curious, and kind. Perhaps the best of both worlds." The child nodded thoughtfully, a smile spreading across their face. It was a small sign, but a sign of hope. Acceptance, Zila realized, often began with the youngest generations. That evening, Zila returned to her balcony to watch the stars. Daniel joined her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You are changing things," he said softly, "not just for yourself, but for your people and for humans." Zila leaned slightly into his hand, feeling reassurance in his presence. "I never imagined this would happen. I laughed at humans, dismissed them, and yet, here I am, and here we are." Daniel smiled. "Sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the greatest discoveries." Zila's eyes softened. "I have learned that humans are not weak. They are brave, capable, and more than I imagined. And that human," Daniel said quietly, "has earned your respect." Zila's scales shimmered faintly in the starlight. She did not answer with words, but her eyes conveyed everything: admiration, trust, and the beginning of something much deeper than she had ever expected. For the first time, Zila no longer laughed at Earth. She understood that strength was not just about technology or speed or pride. Strength was courage, compassion, and the willingness to face the unknown. And humans, especially Daniel, embodied all of that. As the three suns set beyond the horizon, Zila felt the future stretch before her. It was uncertain, full of challenges, but also full of hope. She carried not only a child, but the promise of a new understanding between worlds. And deep in her heart, she knew that Earth and the human who had changed her life would never be underestimated again. Months passed, and Zila's body changed in ways she could not have imagined. She grew stronger, yet gentler. The council continued to watch closely, some with lingering doubt, but most with cautious acceptance. The child she carried was no longer just a symbol of curiosity or fear. It was a promise of unity between two worlds. Daniel never left her side. Every day he assisted the alien scientists, shared ideas, and learned their ways. Yet he always returned to Zila, checking on her well-being. She had never felt such trust or safety with anyone before. His presence grounded her, calming the storm of emotions inside her. One morning, the city's alarms rang. Not danger this time, but a celebration. The council had officially recognized the child as a bridge between species, and a ceremony was planned to honor the future life that had already changed so many hearts. Zila felt a mix of nervousness and pride as she prepared for the event. She had faced judgment, defended the child, and earned acceptance, but seeing the entire city gather in her honor was overwhelming. As she walked through the city, the citizens watched in awe. Many whispered about the courage of the human Daniel and the strength of Zila for embracing the future she had never imagined. Young Varelians stared at her with wonder, seeing the possibility of unity and hope in a child that would one day grow among them. The ceremony was held in the central plaza. Crystal towers shimmered around the gathering, reflecting the golden light of the three suns. The council stood at the front, dignitaries from many worlds observing, and Zila and Daniel approached the center hand in hand. Varek, the elder who had once doubted her, spoke first. "Today, we witness a moment that challenges what we thought possible. A child will come into this world that is both human and Varelian. This child represents courage, wisdom, and the potential for cooperation between our species." Zila glanced at Daniel. He smiled, his eyes full of pride but gentle, never boastful. He squeezed her hand reassuringly. Talon, the wise elder, added, This child is a bridge, not only between worlds but between hearts and minds. It is a symbol that life is stronger when it learns from others, when it respects differences and when it embraces the unknown. Zila's heart swelled. Her pride no longer came from superiority but from courage, love, and hope.
She looked at the people around her, the citizens, the scientists, and the young ones who stared with admiration.
She realized that laughter had been replaced by understanding, and mockery replaced by respect. Days later, the birth approached. Zila and Daniel prepared together, supported by both human and alien healers. The delivery chamber was filled with quiet energy, machines humming softly, lights glowing warmly. Zila gripped Daniel's hand tightly as the process began. "You are doing beautifully," Daniel whispered. "I'm air with you,"